Hi, everyone. Jake Smith from the Delmarva Peninsula for Boardwalk Potatoes. Now, I'm coming to you from the Delmarva Peninsula, but I'm coming to you from Delaware, the home state of Joe Biden. We're getting closer and closer to the election, and I wanted to share something with you that I'm going to be sharing with my radio audience this week. Now, I produce a show here in Delaware on a local radio station in Delaware called Delmarva Live, and I produce a monologue every morning that airs at 9:35 Eastern Time. This monologue in particular is one of the most hard-hitting that I've ever written, and it goes after Uncle Joe Biden himself. And the reason that I have written it is because the situation with the Hunter Biden laptop, the obvious connections between the Biden crime family and the Eastern European syndicate is further proof of what the Bidens really are. Back in the 1970s, Joe Biden palled around with mafia hitmen, such as Frank Sheeran, who was the Irishman in that movie. The Bidens have a very dark history in dealing with some of the most notorious criminals in the world. And don't think that Vladimir Putin is not among them. But I wanted to play for you this monologue. And the monologue is entitled An Open Letter to Uncle Joe. And I hope that you get something out of it. I'm going to be with you. And then at the end of this recorded monologue, it's already been recorded, so I'm going to play it for you. And then we'll have a few words. I will have a few words at the end. Here it is. I am sure you remember the damage that the Willie Horton story did to the candidacy of Michael Dukakis back in 1988. If you consider the bombshell information obtained by the New York Post from the hard drive of Hunter Biden's MacBook, this October surprise places the Willie Horton prison release story in the rearview mirror. But is it really a surprise? Of course not. We knew what was going on. We just didn't have the proof. The Hunter Biden hard drive provides us with the proof that his dad is a pathological liar who cannot be trusted with public office, let alone the presidency. In the monologue, I am going to publish by way of Delmarva Live a very public letter to Joe Biden about this most recent controversy regarding his lies, his son, and the rest of his crooked family. I have some things I want to get off my chest, and I will in a very public letter to Uncle Joe on the monologue. The monologue is entitled A Very Public Letter to Uncle Joe. Dear Uncle Joe, I hope you don't mind this very public letter because I doubt that your staff, the very staff that has been hiding you from the electorate for the better part of a year, would actually let you read this letter, let alone hear the issues that I choose to discuss in this very public format. I know that you are flying by way of a private jet today from Newcastle County Airport to another one of your hand-picked semi-private campaign events in North Carolina. However, I was hoping that you would hear this before departing. By the way, don't you think that flying in a private jet wherever you travel and purchasing a house on the beach in Rehoboth does not square with your Green New Deal? How about that, Uncle Joe? I feel compelled to speak directly to you because, like you, I am also a transplant here in the first state. I think the big difference between you and me is that I moved here for a better life. You moved here because you found Delaware an easy target in which to set up your elaborate pyramid scheme. Delaware is a much easier target than you would have found in Scranton, correct, Uncle Joe? You and your family sit at the top of that pyramid scheme. You created it, and the rest of us, positioned at the bottom, pay for your schemes such as Fisker and Bloom Energy. And yes, Uncle Joe, we know you were working behind the scenes back in 2011, applying pressure to Jack Markell, the then governor of Delaware, to do the Bloom Energy deal. Just a few days ago, NASDAQ was saying publicly that the infamous Bloom Energy Company is already salivating at the possibility of a Biden presidency. I am sure they are. Uncle Joe, will you prevent Bloom from benefiting from big U.S. government energy contracts because they failed to provide the economic benefits and jobs to Delaware that they promised? Just a thought, Uncle Joe. One of the things that bothers me about your public life, Uncle Joe, is your past relationships with noted mob bosses, such as Frank Sheeran. Frank Sheeran was a mafia hitman who also happened to be the president of Teamsters Local 326 in Delaware. Frank Sheeran was a key organized crime figure who helped make Joe Biden Senator Joe Biden. Frank Sheeran was the character portrayed in the movie The Irishman. After all, Uncle Joe, wasn't it Sheeran who organized that wildcat strike against the newspaper delivery people, which had campaign inserts of your Republican opponent from being delivered to homes in New Communist County back in 1972? You bet it was. So, Uncle Joe, you had no trouble cavorting politically with noted mafia crime bosses such as Frank Sheeran and Russell Bafalino, and now it seems that you have no problems cavorting with the Eastern European equivalent to organized crime after you repeatedly denied that you knew anything about your son's business dealings overseas. And like a Teamster mob boss, you learned to instruct Hunter to tell Putin and the other Eastern European crime families that you would skim 10% off the top for yourself. What a guy. In my eyes, Uncle Joe, there is no difference from selling your soul to the mafia back in 1972 or Vladimir Putin in 2012 or beyond. Uncle Joe, it shows your total lack of character. It shows your willingness to do business with anyone, with a mafia hitman like Sheeran, even with a KGB hitman such as Vladimir Putin. Your past dealings with mafia crime bosses, Eastern European crime bosses indicate to me one thing. You don't give a damn about your fellow Americans. You don't give a damn about your country. It's all about padding your pockets. Tell me where I'm wrong, Uncle Joe. Tell me where I am wrong. Uncle Joe, I am sorry to tell you that if I catch someone lying to me, I am done with them. That's the type of person I am. Do you know why? Because I believe, as you should as a Roman Catholic, the truth comes from God. Lies come from the evil one. Those who now have control of the FBI and the deep state are the very same people who are using you, Uncle Joe, as their puppet. You have allowed them to do so just as long as you will be sitting in the Oval Office. Christopher Wray is taking his orders from someone, and that someone is not in Washington. Who are you taking your orders from, Uncle Joe? We would really like to know. One of those characteristics of mobsters is that they have unpaid bills, bounce checks, and the moral equivalent of bounce checks all over town. There are primarily two reasons for that. First, business owners were paying for protection. Second, they were too scared to ask their local mob boss for payment, fearing that they would receive some sort of retribution. There are business owners in New Communist County that say the very same thing about you and your family, Uncle Joe, but I am sure you already knew that, didn't you? Were all those businesses that you have stiffed over the years in New Communist County paying for your protection, or were they too scared of you or your family's retribution, Joe? The owner of the MacBook repair shop in Wilmington said he's scared of retribution from you and your family, Uncle Joe. Were you aware of that? That's right. He said he's scared of you. Why would that be, Uncle Joe? Why? Uncle Joe, I find it fitting that you and your family's past schemes of not paying your bills to local merchants has finally come back to bite you in the ass. I guess if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. It is my understanding, Uncle Joe, that your wide lead in the polls has diminished significantly in recent days. How about that? Perhaps those who really have believed in the good old Uncle Joe persona have finally seen the evidence that you are nothing but a two-bit con man under the control of others. And you thought Hunter was not good for anything, Uncle Joe. Hunter has helped to save this country from you. And for that, we should be forever indebted to him. Thanks for your time, Uncle Joe. Perhaps we will see each other on the boardwalk after Election Day, after President Trump secures his second term. Give my best wishes to Hunter. Very truly yours, Jake. And that is the monologue. What say you? All right, a couple of things. First of all, if you're not from Delaware, you may not know that there are actually three counties in Delaware. There are actually a total of three. Delaware is a small state, second small state in the Union, with obviously Rhode Island being the smallest. But our upper northernmost county is Newcastle County, and I call it New Communist County because it's full of, well, left-wing communists. That's what it's full of. And that is why Delaware has been basically, it's the most populated county in the state. It is very heavily penetrated by Democrats, and that's why the state government and those representing us in Washington are always Democrats, because the most highly populated county is in Newcastle County, or as I call it, New Communist County, which is where Joe Biden lives most of the time. He's also purchased a house on the ocean in the beach in Rehoboth here in Sussex County, the southernmost county, and the least of the three populated counties, which is primarily Republican and conservative. Now, again, the big issue with this whole scenario is that you have the FBI, you have Biden's, you have the Uranium One deal. These are all connected in some way. These are deals, American government sponsored deals with international crime syndicates in Eastern Europe and within communist China. My friends, that is why they have been trying to get Donald J. Trump out of the way since 2015, let alone 2016. They have been trying to stop what we've been doing, and that is trying to take back control over our government, because clearly we have lost control. We've got the FBI under someone's order, someone else's control. Who knows who it is? We've got the deep state under someone else's control. Who knows who it is? We have Joe Biden under someone else's control. Who knows who it is? Could it be the same entity? Could it be the same country, the same syndicate? But one thing is clear. What's coming up on the 3rd of November on Election Day is clearly the choice between saving this country and giving this country up without a shot being fired. And we would do that by electing Joe Biden, who has had a number of past cases of cavorting with members of organized crime, whether it is here in the United States or in Eastern Europe or in communist China. That is what we have to decide. That decision will not only affect us, it will sentence our children and grandchildren to, well, for all intents and purposes, lives without freedom, probably lives living under some type of tyrannic control. That's what we're fighting. So you got a chance to hear my monologue for tomorrow morning. If you want to listen to it again, it'll be posted on Facebook shortly. Jake Smith's Facebook page. Thank you very much for tuning into this very special Boardwalk Potatoes podcast. Until next time, have a great day.